Let's deal with abortion. 40 million abortions since Roe v. Wade. You know, as a pastor, I have to deal with this all the time. All of the pain and all of the conflicts. I know this is a very complex issue. 40 million abortions. At what point does a baby get human rights, in your view?
Well, you know, I think that whether you're looking at it from a theological perspective or a scientific perspective, answering that question with specificity, you know, is above my pay grade. But let me just speak more generally about the issue of abortion, because this is something obviously the country wrestles with. One thing that I'm absolutely convinced of is that there is a moral and ethical element to this issue. And so I think anybody who tries to deny the moral difficulties and gravity of the abortion issue, I think, is not paying attention. So that'd be point number one. But point number two, I am pro-choice. I believe in Roe versus Wade, and I come to that conclusion not because I'm pro-abortion, but because ultimately I don't think women make these decisions casually. I think they wrestle with these things in profound ways, in consultation with their pastors or their spouses or their doctors and their family members. And so for me, the goal right now should be, and this is where I think we can find common ground, and by the way, I've now inserted this into the Democratic Party platform, is how do we reduce the number of abortions? Because the fact is that although we've had a president who's opposed to abortion over the last 8 years, abortions have not gone down. And that, I think, is something that we have to ask.
Have you ever voted to limit or reduce abortions?
Well, I am in favor, for example, of limits on late-term abortions, if there is an exception for the mother's health. Now, from the perspective of those who you know, are pro-life, I think they would consider that inadequate. And I respect their views. I mean, one of the things that I've always said is that on this particular issue, you know, if you believe that life begins at conception, and you are consistent in that belief, then I can't argue with you on that, because that is a core issue of faith for you. What I can do is say, are there ways that we can work together to reduce the number of unwanted pregnancies so that we actually are reducing the sense that women are seeking out abortions? And as an example of that, one of the things that I've talked about is how do we provide the resources that allow women to make the choice to keep a child? You know, have we given them the health care that they need? Have we given them the support services that they need? Have we given them the options of adoption that are necessary? That, I think, can make a genuine difference.
Okay. There's a lot more I'd like to ask on that, but we got 15 other questions here. Define marriage.
I believe that marriage is the union between a man and a woman. Now, for me as a Christian, for me as a Christian, it's also a sacred union. You know, God's in the mix.
Would you support a constitutional amendment with that definition?
No, I would not.
Why not?
And because historically we have not defined marriage in our Constitution. It's been a matter of state law. That has been our tradition. Now, I mean, let's break it down. The reason that people think there needs to be a constitutional amendment, some people believe, is because of the concern that about same-sex marriage. I am not somebody who promotes same-sex marriage, but I do believe in civil unions. I do believe that we should not, that for gay partners to want to visit each other in a hospital, for the state to say, you know what, that's all right. I don't think in any way inhibits my core beliefs about what marriage are. I think my faith is strong enough and my marriage is strong enough that I can afford those civil rights to others, even if I have a different perspective or a different view.
Okay, how about this? What about stem cells? Now, we've had this scientific breakthrough of creating these pluripotent stem cells in adult cells. Do we still need federal funding for research? Would you still support that for embryo stem cell?
Well, keep in mind the way the stem cell legislation that was vetoed by the president was structured. What it said was you could only use embryos that were about to be discarded, that had been created as a consequence of attempts at in vitro fertilization. So there were very tightly circumscribed mechanisms that were permitted. I think that that is a legitimate moral approach to take. If we are going to discard those embryos, and we know that there's potential research that could lead to curing debilitating diseases, Alzheimer's, Lou Gehrig's disease, if that possibility presents itself, then I think that we should, in a careful way, go ahead and pursue that research. Now, if, in fact, adult stem cell lines are working just as well, then of course we should try to avoid any kind of moral arguments that may be in place. But I want to make a broader point, Pastor Rick, on an issue like stem cell research. I mean, it's not like people who are in favor of stem cell research are going around thinking to themselves, you know, boy, let's go destroy some embryos, right? I mean, that's not the perspective that I think people come to that issue on. I think what they say is that we would not tolerate a situation in which, we're encouraging human cloning or in some ways diminishing the sacredness of human life and what it means to be human, but that in narrow circumstances, there is nothing inappropriate with us pursuing scientific research that could lead to cures, so long as we're not designing embryos for that purpose.
Okay, we've got one last time. I've got a bunch more, but let me just ask you one about evil. Does evil exist? And if it does, do we ignore it? Do we negotiate with it? Do we contain it? Do we defeat it?
Evil does exist. I mean, I think we see evil all the time. We see evil in Darfur. We see evil, sadly, on the streets of our cities. We see evil in parents who viciously abuse their children. And I think it has to be confronted. It has to be confronted squarely. And one of the things that I strongly believe is that we are not going to, as individuals, be able to erase evil from the world. That is God's task. But we can be soldiers in that process, and we can confront it when we see it. Now, the one thing that I think is very important is for us to have some humility in how we approach the issue of confronting evil, because a lot of evil has been perpetrated based on the claim that we were trying to confront evil
in the name of good.
In the name of good.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think one thing that's very important is having some humility in recognizing that just because we think our intentions are good doesn't always mean that we're going to be doing good.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to some domestic issues. Don't give me your stump speech on these. Let's go through it.
All right. This is hard. I've been on the stump for a long time.
I know it is.
All right.
Okay. The courts. Let me ask it this way. Which existing Supreme Court justice would you not have nominated?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
worrying about whether immigrants can learn English. They'll learn English. You need to make sure your child can speak Spanish.
Well, that soundbite speaks for itself. And Joe is here to react. Joey now is owner of Geno Steaks in Philadelphia. He's made a national headline for himself in his Speak English sign. It sits in his storefront window. If you want a cheese steak from Joey, you got to order in English. Joey, welcome. What did you think of what Obama said?
David, it's a pleasure to be on your show. We've got to make one correction on my sign. It says, "This is America." When ordering, please speak English. It doesn't mean you're not going to get served. It just you might not get what you thought you ordered. That's all.
So you're a lot more polite. But what do you think about what Obama said?
This man, I don't know what's in his water, if he's drinking any water. This man's a sick man. He's a scary man. I'm outraged. I'm really mad. I mean, I've been an opponent for English to be the official language for over 2 years now. I mean, I can't support any politician that doesn't agree on that. You're here. You must learn English. You must learn it now. I'm not here to speak Spanish. You can learn all the language you want. But English is the language that should be official in this country. And I'd like to make this statement right now for the thousands and thousands of emails over the last couple of years I got in support of the English, which 80% of the people agreed it should be the official language. If you believe in Joey Vento and his English stand, you got to go against this man. This man is bad for the country. Go against all your politicians. Email them, make phone calls,
hey, Joey,
whatever it takes.
Joey, let me ask you. I got to tell you, my wife is from Nicaragua. Spanish is her first language. She's for English only. How many of those emails that you get are from people who may be of a Hispanic or some other background where English isn't their first language?
I got them, right. I get them from all the languages, Spanish, you name them. I got emails for them. I got them at my store. Anybody thinks I'm lying, I'll come down there and show you. They want English. They're glad to come in this country. You know, you assimilate, you learn English language, you're successful. There's nobody entitled.
Joey, let me just say one thing about what Obama said. He said, look, we all grew up having high school French or Spanish or whatever, and we should all be focusing on learning a second language. Let me just play another little clip and see if you agree with this statement that Obama made.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing when Europeans come over here. They all speak English, they speak French, they speak German, and then we go over to Europe, and all we can say is merci beaucoup.
Well, I don't care about whether we go over to Europe, but shouldn't American kids learn to speak a second language?
That should be a choice. If they want it, it shouldn't be forced upon them, and it shouldn't be where we have a dual language in the country. We have to adopt one language. You can learn 100 languages. I have no problem with that. In fact, there are hundreds of languages. Should we learn them all? If we learn Spanish, what are we saying about the other languages? How about Italian, the second language? How about, Japanese, Korean, Russian? We're not saying
who are you going to choose?
Right.
By the way, I'm going to tell you one thing that's going to make it even madder. When my wife took her citizenship vow, she was asked by the judge to translate it for some other new Americans who didn't speak enough English to understand it.
Let's say I don't understand it. You know, this guy, he scares me. I'm telling all the people out there, please vote these people out of office, and if they can't tell you that English will be the official language before the election, vote them all out. And don't be afraid who you're going to get. It's not going to be worse than what we already have. We got to speak. Remember the concept. We the people. They work for us. What is the problem with everybody?
True.
What are we
public
afraid
servants.
of? I said, look at me. You got to hire. Listen, don't. This is so. This man is scary.
Joey, you're going to need a commercial break just to calm down. I don't want you to get sick about this.
One other thing. No, I'm happy. I'm calm.
What
this guy wants to go after the rich people, and that includes a guy like myself, and tax me. And the same people are out there cheering. Yeah, go after them rich people. Don't they realize the rich people hire people, not the poor people? And when it gets too bad, who do you think is going to get laid off? The same people that are room for this guy to tax us.
Joey Vento, as always, you got a lot to say on this. If you want the best cheesesteak in Philadelphia, go to Geno's Steaks. He'll serve you no matter how you feel about this, but he may argue with you a little bit. Great to see you, Joey.
My pleasure. Put me on a show for half hour. Let me get my venom out.
We'll do that, Joey. Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Worrying about whether immigrants can learn English. They'll learn English. You need to make sure your child can speak Spanish.
that's
Obama.
because the national media, as I've been saying for literally months here, is in the tank for Barack Obama. Now I've got, by the way, now, folks, we have documented proof. We have the Washington Post to back me up on this. Next will come the New York Times. But the Washington Post, 3-1, acknowledging 3-1 the number of times that they have kept Barack Obama on their front pages over Senator McCain. I mean, it's extraordinary. Now, we've got this new poll out from the LA Times and Bloomberg showing an absolute dead heat between Obama and McCain. I want, if we could, I've asked them to put up a full screen of just exactly how they opened their lead paragraph here. And remember what I said about in the tank for Obama. Here's the way it goes. Barack Obama's public image has eroded this summer amid a daily onslaught of attacks from Republican rival John McCain, leaving the race for the White House statistically tied. Did somebody bury the lead, for crying out loud? I mean, the Los Angeles Times is in all sorts of trouble. But when its editors permit that kind of nonsense, I don't want to hear from the LA Times about objective journalism.
The Democratic... go ahead, I'm sorry.
There's very little objective journalism from the three major networks. In fact, from this network, too, CNN. It's just not there.
Did Tom mention CNN?
Yes, I did. They're so far in the tank.
I'm sure.
They're so far in the tank for Barack Obama. It's obvious in their work, but it's not going to work with the American people over the long haul. This guy is hopeless without a prompter. He's not going to have one. He's not going to have people in his ear telling him what to say.
You do acknowledge that John McCain, in nearly every piece of video, and by the way, Tom, I'm not sure I agree with you about this being a video society. I'm kind of like you fellas. I think it's a big audio society, too. But, I mean, every time McCain's got a card as well.
Well, he does. In fact,
which may be a smart thing to do.
A piece you showed earlier about him being out on the drilling rig. There he had all the perfect pictures, and he's reading off a card. But the Democrats are apoplectic. They have all of the networks in the tank for them, and Barack Obama still can't get any traction.
But Lou, look where he's played so well. Well, look when he's done very well. He's done exceptionally well at Saddleback over the weekend. He's done exceptionally well with the veterans when he speaks from the hip. This is local media, too, by the way. When they come through the Show Me State and they want this state bad, you wouldn't believe the local media coverage in the tank in a big way for Obama.
Really?
Oh,
my gosh.
Listen, in the state I'm from, in Pennsylvania, and in New Jersey, New York, all of them, in the Baltimore Sun, the Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, I can run up the coast. They're so far in the tank you can't find them. But in the long run, I think we're going to see a different campaign, and that's why you need a Romney to go after Barack's jugular. It'll be hard for NBC to report it, but they'll have to.
You and John are pushing your candidates here tonight. Chris is not settled on McCaskill, so we'll come back and take a new vote here later. So very much, thank you very much for being with us.
You're gonna get your mind right. And I mean right.
at it from a theological perspective or a scientific perspective. Answering that question with specificity, is above my pay grade.